The heat never stopped on Drachme. It rose from the black rocks in waves that made the air shimmer like water. Taiwan wiped the sweat from his face with his torn sleeve and lifted another piece of volcanic stone. His hands were rough now, covered in cuts that never quite healed before new ones appeared. 6 months ago, those same hands had been smooth, skilled at turning pieces of oak and pine into beautiful things. Now they moved rocks from one pile to another, day after day, under the watch of creatures that breathed fire. The Draken guards stood at the edges of the work site, their massive bodies covered in scales that gleamed red and bronze in the harsh light. They were twice the height of any human, with wings folded against their backs and eyes that glowed like hot coals. When they spoke to each other, it sounded like rocks grinding together, deep and harsh. When they spoke to the prisoners, they used short words in Galactic Standard, the common language most species understood. The words were always the same. Work faster. Move more. Stay quiet. Taiwan had learned to stay quiet. So had the other 43 humans in the labor camp. They came from different colonies, captured during different raids, but they all shared the same gray jumpsuits now. They all had the same hollow look in their eyes. They all moved through the motions of survival, nothing more. The work was simple but endless. The Draken Empire wanted the thermal crystals that grew deep in Drachme's volcanic tunnels. These crystals stored heat energy and powered their ships, their weapons, their cities. The humans dug them out, carried them up, and loaded them onto transport ships. Some days, Taiwan wondered if the Draken could do this work themselves with their strength and fire resistance. Then he realized they probably could. They simply chose not to. Why would they, when they had prisoners? The sun was setting when the guards finally signaled the end of the work shift. The prisoners shuffled back to the compound, a collection of metal buildings surrounded by energy barriers. Inside, it was marginally cooler. Taiwan collapsed onto his sleeping mat in the barracks he shared with 15 other men. His muscles screamed. His head pounded. But his mind, as always, wandered to the small piece of petrified wood hidden under his mat. He had found it 3 weeks ago, near the edge of the volcanic field. It was old wood, turned to stone over countless years, with a grain pattern still visible in the dark surface. It was beautiful. More importantly, it was something other than gray metal and black rock. After the evening meal, a thin soup that barely counted as food, Taiwan waited until the lights dimmed. Around him, men snored or whispered quietly to each other. He pulled out the piece of petrified wood and the small shard of metal he had sharpened against the rocks. In the darkness, his hands remembered what they were made for. He carved slowly, carefully, feeling the shape that wanted to emerge from the stone. It was a bird, small enough to fit in his palm. He thought of the sparrows that used to visit his workshop back on Earth, hopping along the windowsill while he worked. The memory hurt, but it was a good hurt. It reminded him that he had been someone once, that he might be someone again. Bora appeared beside him without warning. She was good at moving quietly, a skill she said came from teaching small children for 20 years. "You will get in trouble," she whispered in Korean. Most of the prisoners spoke Galactic Standard to each other, but a few shared languages from home. It felt like a secret treasure, words the Draken could not understand. "They do not care," Taiwan replied, not looking up from his work. To them, this is nothing. Primitive behavior. "Maybe," Bora said. She sat down beside him, her own face lined with exhaustion. "But it makes you different. Different is dangerous here." Taiwan knew she was right. He also knew he could not stop. The carving was the only thing keeping him human. Without it, he would become just another piece of equipment, moving rocks until his body gave out. He had seen it happen to others. Their eyes went empty first. Then they stopped talking. Then, one day, they simply did not get up from their mats. He finished the bird's wing, running his thumb along the curve to smooth it. It was rough work compared to what he used to create, but it had life in it. That was enough. Over the next few days, Taiwan made more carvings during the brief hours between work and sleep. A fox, sleek and alert. A turtle, its shell marked with careful patterns. A rabbit with long ears. Each one fit in his hand, small enough to hide, detailed enough to matter. He kept them under his mat, taking them out only to look at them, to remember that beauty could still exist. Then one evening, as he was putting the wooden bird back in its hiding place, his hand slipped. The bird rolled away, bouncing across the metal floor. It hit the wall and kept going, disappearing through the gap under the barracks door that led outside. Taiwan froze. The door was locked at night. The energy barrier surrounded everything. He could not go after it. He stared at the gap where the bird had vanished, feeling a loss that seemed too large for such a small thing. "It is gone," Bora said softly. "Make another one." But Taiwan could not shake the strange feeling in his chest. That bird was the first thing he had completed, the first piece that felt right despite the crude tools and harsh conditions. Sending it out into the darkness felt like releasing something important. A message, maybe, proof that a human had been here and made something that mattered. That night, he carved a new bird, this one with its wings spread as if in flight. He made its beak open, as if it was singing. When he finished, he set it carefully with the other animals and lay back on his mat. Through the small window above, he could see the stars, the same stars that hung above Earth somewhere far away. The same stars that looked down on free humans who carved wood in warm workshops and never thought about thermal crystals or Draken guards. Tomorrow would bring more heat, more rocks, more endless labor. But tonight, Taiwan had created something. In a place designed to break him, he had made beauty. That felt like winning, even if it was the smallest victory imaginable. He closed his eyes and dreamed of birds. Vermith hated the sound of his siblings playing. Their roars echoed across the compound, full of joy and strength. They wrestled in the training grounds, their scales flashing in the sunlight as they practiced combat moves that would one day make them warriors. Their father watched with pride. Their mother nodded approval. Nobody looked at Vermith, sitting alone near the edge of the eastern wall. He was small, not human small, but small for a Draken. At 8 seasons old, he should have been as large as the training ground targets. Instead, he barely reached his father's shoulder. His scales were wrong too. Where his siblings gleamed in solid reds and golds and bronzes, his scales shimmered with an odd purple-blue undertone that changed in different light. It looked sickly, his eldest brother said. It looked weak. Weakness was the worst thing a Draken could be. The Empire was built on strength, on fire, on the ability to dominate lesser species. A weak prince was not just an embarrassment. He was a danger to the family's position. So Vermith was kept separate, hidden away on this miserable moon where few important Draken would see him. His father had been assigned to govern the mining operation here as punishment for political failure. Vermith understood he was part of that punishment. He spent most of his days alone, walking the perimeter of the compound while his siblings trained. The guards ignored him. The workers, mostly aliens from species Vermith did not recognize, kept their distance. Nobody spoke to him unless they had to. Nobody played with him. Nobody wanted to. On this particular evening, Vermith walked along the path that ran near the human prisoner barracks. He had seen humans before, small pink and brown creatures that moved slowly in the heat. They were fragile things, easily broken. The guards said they were barely intelligent, good only for simple labor. Vermith had no reason to doubt this. He had been taught that most species were inferior to the Draken. He was looking at the ground, as he often did, when something caught his eye. A small object lay near the energy barrier, half hidden in the shadow of the barracks wall. Vermith moved closer, curious. It was tiny, smaller than his smallest claw. He picked it up carefully. It was a bird. Not a real bird, but a carving made from dark wood that had turned to stone. Vermith had seen birds on other worlds, small flying creatures that served no real purpose. But this one was different. This one had details. The wings had individual feathers carved into them. The beak was open slightly. The eyes, just tiny indentations, somehow seemed alive. Vermith turned it over in his claws, amazed. Who would make something like this? And why? It served no function. It was not a weapon or a tool. It was simply beautiful. He had never owned anything beautiful before. Everything he had was practical, designed for training or education. This little bird was something else entirely. He looked up at the barracks. The windows were dark. No one was watching. Vermith slipped the bird into the small pouch he wore on his belt and continued his walk, but his mind stayed on the carving. Someone had made this. Someone had taken time and effort to create something small and perfect. The thought fascinated him. That night, Vermith took the bird out in his private room and studied it by lamplight. His claws were too large and sharp to have made something like this. Whoever carved it had small, precise hands. A human, perhaps? The thought seemed absurd. Humans were primitive. The god said so. His tutors said so. But someone had made this bird, and it was more beautiful than anything in his family's formal quarters. The next evening, Vermith returned to the same spot near the barracks. He searched the ground carefully, hoping foolishly that he might find another treasure. There was nothing. Disappointed, he sat down on a rock and took out the bird, running one claw very gently along its smooth surface. He made a decision then. It felt childish and probably stupid, but Vermith had no friends and no one to tell him not to do stupid things. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a crystal he had found in the tunnels during one of his lonely explorations. It was small and clear, catching the fading light. He placed it carefully on the ground near where he had found the bird, then walked away quickly before he could feel too embarrassed. 3 days passed. The crystal was gone. In its place sat a small wooden fox, carved with the same careful detail as a bird. Vermith's hearts, both of them, beat faster. Someone had taken his gift. Someone had left another carving in return. He was not imagining it. Someone was communicating with him. Over the next 2 weeks, Vermith brought more gifts. A piece of polished metal, a smooth stone from the riverbed 5 kilometers south, a dried flower that somehow grew in the volcanic soil. Each time, a new carving appeared. A turtle with patterns on its shell, a rabbit with alert ears, a fish with scales that mimicked his own strange coloring. Whoever was making these new Vermith was collecting them. They were making them for him specifically. Vermith started a collection in his room, arranging the carvings on his window ledge where the light hit them best. He talked to them sometimes, telling them about his day, about his siblings, about how lonely it felt to be the broken prince. The wooden animals did not judge him. They simply existed, beautiful and perfect in his. His brother Crowvor noticed one day, bursting into Vermith's room without knocking as he always did. "What are those?" he demanded, pointing at the window. "Toys," Vermith said, trying to sound casual. "Just toys." Crowvor picked up the bird, his claws scraping against its surface. "Primitive garbage. This is human work, isn't it? You are collecting human trash." He laughed, a harsh sound that made Vermith's scales itch. "Mother will love this. The weak prince plays with prisoner toys." He threw the bird at Vermith's feet and left, still laughing. Vermith picked up the bird carefully, checking for damage. It was fine. His heart slowed back to normal. Crowvor would tell their mother, certainly, but maybe she would not care. She rarely paid attention to what Vermith did, as long as he stayed out of sight. That evening, Vermith made a decision. He would not just leave gifts anymore. He would wait. He would see who was making these beautiful things. He needed to know if someone in this horrible place understood what it meant to be lonely. He needed to know if the person on the other side of those carvings might be something like a friend. The word felt strange even in his thoughts. Friend. He had never had one. He did not know if he was even allowed to have one. But as he clutched the wooden bird in his claws, Vermith thought maybe it was worth finding out. Taiwan noticed the gifts on the 4th day. He had placed a wooden fox near the gap under the door, half hoping the same mysterious force that took his bird might find it. The next morning, there was a small crystal where the fox had been, clear as water and perfectly smooth. It was worth more than anything Taiwan had owned in 6 months. He showed it to Bora during the morning meal. She turned it over in her weathered hands, her eyes widening. "This is thermal crystal," she whispered. "Refined, the kind they put in their ships. Where did you get this?" "Someone left it," Taiwan said, "in exchange for the carvings." Bora looked at him like he had gone mad from the heat. Who would trade this for a piece of wood? "I don't know," Taiwan admitted, "but they keep taking the carvings, and they keep leaving things." Over the next week, more items appeared. A piece of metal that Bora said was high-grade alloy. A stone so smooth it felt like glass. A dried flower that still held a faint sweet smell. Each time, Taiwan left a new carving. A fish. A deer. A cat. He spent every free moment working on them, trying to make each one better than the last. Bora watched him with growing concern. "This is dangerous," she said one evening. "What if it's a god? What if they're testing you?" Testing me for what? Taiwan asked, carving the ears on a small dog. I'm already a prisoner. What more can they do? Don't be foolish, Bora snapped, her teacher voice coming out. They can do plenty. They can send you to the deep mines. They can reduce our food. They can hurt you just because they feel like it. Taiwan knew she was right, but he also knew he could not stop. Someone out there wanted his carvings. Someone valued them enough to trade precious things for them. That meant something. It meant his work mattered to someone, even if he did not know who. He decided to carve something special. A dragon, but not like the Drakengard's. This one was small and delicate, with wings spread wide and a long tail curled around its feet. He made the scales carefully, each one distinct. He gave it a gentle expression, not fierce or angry. When he finished, he looked at it for a long time. It was the best thing he had made since his capture. He left it by the door and waited. 2 days passed with nothing. Taiwan began to think his mysterious collector had lost interest. Then, on the third evening, he found the dragon was gone. In its place was a bundle wrapped in soft cloth. Inside were 3 protein bars, the kind the guards ate, and a small medical kit with bandages and antiseptic cream. Taiwan stared at the items. This was not just a trade anymore. Whoever was leaving these things understood that the prisoners needed them. This was help. This was kindness. That night, he could not sleep. He kept thinking about who would leave such gifts. A god seemed impossible. They barely looked at the prisoners as people. An alien worker? Maybe. But they stayed far from the Draken compound. Someone else. Then, someone who had access to good supplies but chose to trade them for wooden toys. He decided to wait up and watch. Bora thought he was being foolish again, but she helped him stay awake, talking quietly about her students back on Earth, the children she might never see again. Taiwan talked about his workshop, the smell of fresh wood shavings, the satisfaction of seeing a sculpture take shape. Near midnight, Taiwan heard something outside, a soft scraping sound, like claws on stone. He moved to the door silently and peered through the gap. In the dim light from the compound lamps, he saw a figure crouched near the wall. It was a draken, but small, young. Its scales caught the light strangely, shimmering purple and blue instead of the usual red and gold. The creature was placing something on the ground, moving with careful precision. When it straightened up, Taiwan saw it was barely taller than he was. A child. The mysterious collector was a draken child. The young dragon turned to leave, and Taiwan did something probably very stupid. He spoke, using the simple galactic standard he had learned. Wait! The dragon froze, then turned slowly. Its eyes were large and frightened, glowing softly in the darkness. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Taiwan held up the small wooden bear he had carved that evening. He pushed it carefully through the gap under the door. The young dragon stared at it, then slowly reached down and picked it up with surprising gentleness. It looked at the bear, then at Taiwan's face visible in the gap. You make these? It asked in halting galactic standard. Yes, Taiwan said. You have been taking them. The dragon nodded, holding the bear close to its chest. They are beautiful. I never see beautiful things before. Taiwan felt something break open in his chest. This child, this creature that was supposed to be his enemy, spoke with such simple honesty that it hurt. What is your name? He asked. Vermith. The dragon said quietly, I am Prince, but not good Prince. Too small. Wrong color. He touched his scales self-consciously. I am Taiwan, he replied. I am prisoner. But before, I was artist. I made beautiful things. You still make beautiful things, Vermith said. That is why I come. They make me happy. They talked for an hour, their words simple and halting but filled with meaning. Vermith explained about his loneliness, his cruel siblings, his life of isolation. Taiwan talked about Earth, about his workshop, about the freedom of creating art. They discovered they had more in common than either expected. Both were seen as lesser. Both were alone. Both found comfort in small, beautiful things. Bora had been listening from her mat, and when Vermith finally left, she came to Taiwan's side. A dragon child, she said softly. You have befriended a dragon child. It is lonely, Taiwan said. Like we are. He's still a dragon. His family runs his prison. He's a child who likes wooden toys, Taiwan said firmly, and is the only person on this moon who treats my work with respect. I won't abandon him. Bora was quiet for a long time. Then she sighed. Then I suppose we should make sure you have enough wood to keep carving. That child needs a friend. Maybe we all do. Over the following weeks, Taiwan and Vermith met every few nights. Vermith brought supplies, not just for himself but for all the prisoners. Better food, medicine, blankets for the cold nights. In return, Taiwan created an entire collection of wooden animals. He carved creatures from Earth that Vermith had never seen. Elephants and giraffes and penguins. He told stories about each one, and Vermith listened with wonder. The young dragon learned human concept that his own people had never taught him. Play, friendship, kindness. He learned that being small did not mean being worthless. He learned that beauty could matter as much as strength. And Taiwan learned that even in the darkest place, connection was possible. That kindness could cross any divide, even one between species that were at war. They both learned what it meant to have a friend. Crowvor knew his younger brother was hiding something. Vermith moved differently these days, with purpose instead of his usual defeated shuffle. He smiled sometimes when he thought no one was watching. Worst of all, he seemed happy. That was unacceptable. A weak prince could be tolerated if he knew his place. A weak prince who acted like he had value was dangerous. It made others question the natural order. It made their father look soft. Crowvor had worked too hard to establish himself as a dominant sibling to let Vermith ruin it now. He began following his brother during the evening hours. Vermith would slip out to the family quarters after the evening meal, carrying his little pouch. He always went toward the eastern section of the compound, near the prisoner barracks. Crowvor stayed back, using the shadows and his natural stealth. He was good at hunting. It was what he was bred for. On the fifth night of watching, Crowvor saw everything. Vermith approached the human barracks and crouched down near the wall. A moment later, a human appeared at the gap under the door. They spoke to each other, their voices too quiet for Crowvor to hear the words. But he saw Vermith's face. His weak little brother was looking at a human prisoner with affection, with friendship. Then Vermith took out a bundle of supplies, expensive supplies from the family stores, and pushed them through the gap. The human gave him something in return, something small that Vermith held like it was precious. Crowvor moved closer, careful to stay hidden, and saw it clearly, a carved piece of wood. His brother was trading valuable resources for human garbage. Crowvor felt rage burn in his chest, hot and satisfying. This was better than he hoped. This was not just foolishness. This was betrayal, trading with prisoners, giving them supplies, befriending the enemy. Their father would have to act. He could not ignore this. Vermith would finally be dealt with properly. He waited until Vermith returned to the quarters, then burst into his room. "Where have you been?" he demanded. Vermith jumped, startled. "Walking. Just walking." "Liar." Crowvor moved to the window ledge where Vermith kept his collection. There were dozens of carvings now, arranged carefully. Animals from alien worlds. Strange creatures Crowvor did not recognize. "You've been with the humans, trading with prisoners. Do you understand what you've done?" Vermith's scales paled. "I have not done anything wrong. I was just talking to someone." Talking to a prisoner, Crowvor said, "Giving them our supplies, making yourself weak by caring about inferior creatures." He picked up one of the carvings, a small dragon that looked disturbingly like Vermith himself. "You even let them mock you with these toys." "They are not toys," Vermith said, his voice stronger than Crowvor expected. "They are art. They are gifts. And he is my friend." "Friend?" Crowvor crushed the carving in his claws. The wood shattered, pieces falling to the floor. "You don't have friends. You have family who tolerates you out of obligation. That human is a prisoner, a tool, a thing that exists to serve us." Vermith looked at the broken pieces on the floor, and something changed in his expression. For the first time in his life, Crowvor saw real anger in his brother's eyes. "Taiwan is not a thing," Vermith said. "He is kind and talented, and he treats me better than anyone in this family ever has. He sees me as a person, not as a mistake." Because he wants something from you, Krelvor said. His using you. They all are. That's what weak species do. They manipulate. No, Vermith said firmly. You are wrong. Taiwan gives more than he takes. He teaches me things. He listens. He cares. Krelvor laughed, the sound echoing in the small room. Father will enjoy hearing this. Mother too. Let's see how much your human friend cares when you're both punished for the stupidity. He left, taking one of the carvings with him as evidence. Behind him, he heard Vermith scrambling to gather the rest of his collection. Good. Let him panic. Let him understand that weakness always led to consequences. The next morning, Krelvor presented his evidence to their father in the command center. The carved wooden horse sat on the metal desk between them. Their mother stood nearby, her expression cold. Vermith has been meeting with human prisoners, Krelvor explained, trading out supplies for these primitive objects. He calls one of them his friend. Their father picked up the carving, turning it over in his massive claws. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed, a sound like steam escaping from a vent. Bring him here. Guards fetched Vermith from his room. He entered the command center with his head down, his strange scale seeming even more out of place in the harsh light. But when he saw the carving on the desk, he lifted his chin. Is this true? Their father asked. You have been fraternizing with prisoners. Yes, Vermith said. Their mother hissed in disappointment. Why would you do something so shameful? Do you not understand what you are? I understand what I am, Vermith said, and his voice did not shake. I am a person who was lonely. Taiwan was kind to me. He gave me friendship when no one else would. He taught me that I have value beyond my strength or the color of my scales. A human taught you this, their father said, his tone dangerous. A prisoner taught you about value. Yes, Vermith said, because you never did. None of you did. You hid me away. You were ashamed of me. Taiwan was the first person who ever looked at me and saw something worth knowing. Krelvor expected their father to roar, to punish Vermith immediately. Instead, the old dragon just looked tired. You have embarrassed his family, he said quietly. The human will be sent to the deep mines. Permanent assignment. You will not see him again. You will stay in your quarters under guard. If you try to contact any prisoners again, I will send them all to the deep mines. Do you understand? Vermith's eyes widened with horror. No, please. He did nothing wrong. Punish me, but not him. He is innocent. He is a prisoner, their father said. He has no innocence to protect. This is decided. Guards, escort the prince to his quarters. And someone fetch the prisoner. What is his designation? Taiwan, Vermith said desperately. His name is Taiwan. Please don't do this. Their father ignored him. The guards led Vermith away, though he fought against them for the first time in his life. His cries echoed through the corridors, calling Taiwan's name, begging for mercy that would not come. Krelvor watched it all with satisfaction. Finally, his weak brother understood the cost of caring about inferior beings. Finally, order was restored. He did not notice the look their mother gave him, something between disappointment and disgust. He only saw his victory and thought it was complete. But he did not know that deep in the prisoner barracks, Bora was already making plans. She had watched Taiwan transform over the past weeks, had seen him become human again through his friendship with a dragon child. She would not let that end without a fight. Other prisoners agreed. The supplies Vermith brought had helped all of them. They owed him. They owed Taiwan. And in a cell far across the compound, a young dragon sat surrounded by broken wooden carvings and made a choice. He would not abandon his friend. He could not. Taiwan had taught him what friendship meant. Now Vermith would show everyone that he had learned the lesson well. The deep mines were a death sentence dressed as a work assignment. Everyone knew it. The tunnels went kilometers into Drachme's volcanic core, where the heat could melt metal and the air was thick with toxic gases. Humans sent their lasted weeks at most. Taiwan had 3 days before the transport would take him down. He spent those days in isolation, separated from the other prisoners. They gave him no tools, no materials, nothing to work with. His hands felt empty. Wrong. He tried to sleep but kept seeing Vermith's face, the young dragon who had become his friend. He hoped Vermith would not blame himself. He hoped the child would be safe. Bora had other plans. She gathered the prisoners in the barracks after the evening meal, speaking in urgent whispers. "We cannot let them send him to die," she said. "Taiwan gave us hope. The young prince gave us supplies. We owe them both." "What can we do?" asked Dano, a younger man who had been captured only 2 months ago. "We are prisoners. We have no weapons, no way out." "We have information," Bora said. "We know the compound layout. We know the guard schedules. And we have help coming." She explained that she had been sending messages, scratched on metal scraps and hidden in the thermal crystal shipments. Messages to the Resistance. Messages to the human fleet. She had been doing it for months, and finally, someone had answered. A rescue team was coming. They would arrive in 2 days, during the diplomatic visit when half the guard will be busy with protocol. "But Taiwan will be gone by then," Dano said. "Not if we delay the transport," Bora replied. "Not if we cause enough trouble that they postpone the transfer." The prisoners worked through the night, planning. They would sabotage equipment, fake illness, create confusion, anything to buy time. It was dangerous, but they had already lost so much. What was a little more risk? Meanwhile, Vermith sat in his locked quarters, surrounded by guards who watched him constantly. His collection of carvings was scattered across his floor. He had gathered every piece, even the broken ones. They were all he had left of Taiwan. He held the small dragon carving, the one that looked like him, and made his decision. He would not let his friend die. He could not. Taiwan had shown him kindness when no one else would, had treated him as valuable when his own family called him worthless, had given him friendship, that rare and precious thing. Vermith would not abandon him, even if it cost everything. On the second day, the diplomatic visitors arrived. They were representatives from other Draken colonies, here to inspect the mining operation. Vermith's father was forced to present his family, even the embarrassing youngest son. They dressed Vermith in formal armor that did not fit right and marched him to the reception hall. Vermith played his part, bowing when expected, staying quiet as his siblings displayed their strength. But he was watching, waiting. He saw how the guards moved to escort duty, how the security checkpoints thinned, how everyone's attention focused on the important visitors. When the tour moved toward the processing facilities, Vermith slipped away. No one noticed at first. He was always easy to overlook. He went to the control room, where his father's command code was stored. He had watched his father input them hundreds of times, memorizing each sequence. Now he used them. The energy barriers around the prisoner barracks failed. The locks on the isolation cells opened. Alarms began blaring, but not the right alarms. Vermith had routed them to the wrong sectors, sending guards running to empty buildings. In the chaos, Bora moved fast. She led the prisoners out to the barracks, toward the landing pad where ships sat ready for transport. They ran through corridors filled with confusion, guards shouting and trying to understand what was happening. Taiwan was pulled from his isolation cell by Dano and 2 others. "What is happening?" he asked, stumbling as they ran. "We are escaping," Dano said. "All of us. Right now." "How?" "Your friend," Bora said, catching up to them. "The dragon. He is helping us." Taiwan's heart lurched. "No, he will be punished. He will be killed." "Then we better make sure we get him out too," Bora said firmly. They reached the landing pad as a human ship dropped from the sky, its weapons firing at the guard towers. It was a resistance vessel, small and fast. The back ramp opened, and a woman in pilot gear waved them forward. "Move! Move! Move!" she shouted. Her name was Hyjin, and she had been flying rescue missions for 3 years. This was her most daring yet. The prisoners ran up the ramp, some crying, some laughing, all desperate. Taiwan started aboard, then stopped. "Where's Vermith?" he asked. "No time," Hyjin said. "We have to go now." "I will not leave him," Taiwan said. He turned and ran back toward the compound. Dano cursed and ran after him. "You are insane." They found Vermith in the central courtyard, surrounded by guards. His father stood before him, fury radiating from every scale. "You betrayed us," the old dragon roared. "You betrayed your family, your species, your empire. I saved my friend, Vermith said. His voice was small but steady. That is worth more than your empire. Krelvor lunged forward, his claws extended. You are not my brother, he snarled. You are nothing. He struck Vermith hard across the chest. The young dragon fell, blood pooling beneath him. His strange purple-blue scales were torn, revealing pale flesh underneath. Taiwan screamed. He did not think, did not plan. He just ran forward and threw himself over Vermith's body, shielding him. Dano was right behind him, and then more prisoners, forming a barrier between the wounded dragon and his family. You want to kill him? Taiwan shouted at the Draken. You have to go through us first. All of us. The gods hesitated. Krelvor did not. He moved forward, ready to kill them all. Then a blast from Hyjin's ship hit the ground between them, sending everyone sprawling. The ship descended, its weapons trained on the Draken forces. Get him on board. Hyjin's voice crackled through a speaker. Now! Taiwan and Dano lifted Vermith between them. The young dragon was heavy, even small as he was, but they managed. They carried him across the courtyard as weapons fire erupted around them. Other prisoners provided cover, throwing rocks and equipment at the gods. It was chaos and desperation and something like bravery. They reached the ship. Vermith was barely conscious, bleeding heavily. Bora, who had medical training, immediately began working on his wounds. The ship lifted off as guards fired at them, but Hyjin was skilled. She dodged and weaved, then pushed the ship into full thrust. They broke atmosphere within minutes. Behind them, Drachme became a small point of light, then disappeared entirely. They were free. Vermith woke up 2 days later in the medical bay of a human settlement. Taiwan sat beside him, carving a new figure from a piece of what someone had given him. When the young dragon's eyes opened, Taiwan smiled. You saved us, Taiwan said. You saved all of us. You came back for me, Vermith whispered. Why? Because you are my friend, Taiwan said simply. Friends do not leave each other behind. Vermith learned later that he was a first Draken defector. The human resistance was amazed. The news spread across the galaxy. A dragon prince had chosen friendship over empire, had chosen humans over his own family. It changed things. Not everything, not overnight, but it planted seeds of doubt in the war's certainty. Months passed. Vermith healed, though the scars on his chest never fully disappeared. He lived in the human settlement, learning their ways, teaching them about Draken technology and tactics. His strange scales, it turned out, were not a defect. They allowed him to withstand cold temperatures that would kill other Draken. In human space, he was not weak. He was special. Taiwan returned to his craft, teaching Vermith the art of carving. The young dragon's claws were too large for fine work, but he learned patience and care. Together they created pieces that merged human and Draken aesthetics, art that belonged to both cultures and neither. Bora established a school where human children learned alongside Vermith. They were frightened at first, but he was gentle and kind, and children learned quickly that he meant no harm. Soon they played together, the small humans climbing on the young dragon like he was playground equipment. In Taiwan's workshop, on a shelf above his workbench, sat a small wooden bird with its wings spread. It was the first carving Vermith had ever found, kept safe through everything. Next to it was a dragon figure Taiwan had carved all those months ago, the one that started everything. Sometimes visitors would ask about them, and Taiwan would tell the story, about a lonely human and a lonely dragon, about wooden toys and impossible friendship, about choosing kindness in a place designed for cruelty, about how the smallest gestures could change everything. And people would listen and wonder, and some of them would start to believe that maybe, just maybe, the war could end, not through weapons or strategy, but through the simple act of seeing each other's people first, enemy second. It started with a wooden bird that rolled under a door. It grew into something that shook an empire. And it all happened because one human refused to stop creating beauty, and one dragon child was brave enough to reach out for it.